Religion and globalization starts with an understanding of how the exercise of authority varies in religious contexts and with a firm grasp of the interplay of the erudite and institutional and the popular in religious life. It views religion as, many among other things, a means of boundary maintenance. Globalization has complex effects on religion. On one hand, it facilitates the spread of religious ideas and practices across borders, fostering cultural exchange. On the other hand, some argue that globalization can lead to the erosion of traditional religious values as societies become more interconnected and exposed to diverse perspectives. Additionally, globalization can contribute to tensions between different religious groups due to increased interactions and competition for influence. Roland Robertson, a sociologist, is known for coining the term globalization in 1992. In his work, he explored the idea that globalization doesn't just homogenize cultures, but also allows for the adaptation and localization of global influences. Regarding religion, Robertson emphasized how globalization could lead to the emergence of new hybrid forms of spirituality as traditional religious practices intersect with global influences. In his work, he encourages the consideration of both global and local dynamics in understanding the impact of globalization on various aspects of society, including religion. Peter Bayer, 1994, who has continued in Robertson's theoretical footsteps, can be thought of as the first stage in the evolution of our understanding of globalization's interaction with religion. It is based on assumptions drawn from the classical sociological tradition. 1. The understanding that globalization is an extension across national boundaries of the process of Western modernization. 2. The use of societies as basis units of analysis whose boundaries coincide with those of nation-states. 3. The assumption that religious revivals are an expression of traditional identities and a reaction against modernity.
Effects of globalization to religion. Rise of religious nationalism. Globalization can fuel religious nationalism as communities react to perceived threats, emphasizing the religious identity to resist cultural homogenization. Return of religion into public life. Globalization can trigger a resurgence of religion in public discourse as diverse cultures interact, leading to increased visibility and influence of religious values. Proliferation of international terrorism. Globalization facilitates the spread of ideas and grievances, contributing to the transnational nature of some religiously motivated terrorist activities. Increasing personalized individual religiosity. Globalization's cultural exchange may prompt individuals to personalize their religious beliefs, adopting a more eclectic or individualized approach as they navigate diverse global influences.
Globalization of religion. The link between globalization and religion are complex and multifaceted. On the one hand, globalization has led to the spread of religious ideas and practices around the world, as people move, communicate, and share information more easily than ever before. Most conflicts of religion are about identity and economics, privilege and power, extremist, and lastly, fundamentalist. First, identity and economic. Conflicts often arise due to disputes over identity and economic interests. When individuals or groups feel their identity or economic stability is threatened, they may turn to religious doctrines to legitimize their actions. They might argue that their faith and way of life are being undermined and they must defend it. Privilege and power. The pursuit of privilege and power can lead to conflicts. Those in positions of power may manipulate religions, doctrines to maintain or expand their authority. They may claim divine support for their actions, justifying their dominance or aggression. Extremists. Extreme individuals or groups may interpret religious teachings in a radical way to advance their agenda. They might cite specific verses or teachings to rationalize acts of violence or terrorism as a means to achieve their goals, believing that they're acting in accordance with their faith. Lastly, we have fundamentalists. Fundamentalist interpretations emphasize strict adherence to the core tenets of a religion, often advocating a return to the literal interpretation of a sacred text. In doing so, they may invoke ancient verses and doctrines to reinforce their beliefs, potentially justifying confrontations with those who disagree. In these cases, religious doctrines and sacred texts are selectively used to validate actions in the name of faith, even though the underlying motivations for conflicts may be more rooted in socio-political, economic, or power dynamics. It is important to recognize that religion can be a tool in these conflicts, but the underlying issues are often deeply intertwined with broader issues.
Stages of a conflict development. Global religious rebellion against the secular state. First is the revolt against secularism. The concept of a revolt against secularism can take various forms depending on the context, cultural, and political landscape of a specific region. Second is the internationalization of religious rebellion. It refers to the phenomenon where religious movements, uprisings, or conflicts transcend national borders and become part of a broader, often global narrative. Third is the invention of global enemies. The concept of inventing global enemies refers to the creation or identification of a common adversary that transcends the national or regional boundaries. Lastly is the religious dimension of post-Arab Spring. It is the initial wave of protest was largely driven by demands for political reform, economic justice, and an end to corruption. The movement had significant religious dimension, and its aftermath had a profound impact on the religious landscape in the affected countries. The teachings of great religions and moral principles and values are necessary tools for the abatement of avarice, abhorrence, and illusion, which are considered the root cause of conflict.
Humanitarian assistance and faith-centered interventions. Humanitarian assistance is material and logistics aid to people who need help. It is usually short-term assistance provided by private personnel or groups and organizations. The goal is to help achieve peace by advancing poverty reduction and putting attention to economic equality. Some examples of these are post-disaster relief goods, feeding programs, and donations. Faith-centered interventions are activities designed to strengthen the attitude of people who committed actions that are deemed unacceptable by the community or that disturbs peace. They are efforts of religious organizations to mediate understanding and peace. This includes counseling, Bible studies, and preaching.
Broad categories in secularization theory can be classified into two streams. The first one is the negative secularism. This concept of secularism is similar to the language used in the First Amendment, focusing on the separation of religion and state. It emphasizes the idea of keeping religion out of public affairs and maintaining a neutral stance towards religious beliefs. The second one is the post-secular society. Another stream of secularization theory is the notion of a post-secular society. This perspective recognizes that secularization is not a linear process and suggests that religion remains a significant force in modern societies. Scholars like Jürgen Habermas propose the concept of post-secularity, which sees a religion as re-emerging in various forms within contemporary societies.
In sociology of religion, the notion of globalization emerged in the early 1980s in a series of publications by sociologist Roland Robertson and his co-authors. Roland Robertson's perspective on globalization, often termed localization, emphasizes the interconnectedness of global and local dynamics. He argues that globalization is not merely a one-way process but involves a reciprocal influence between global forces and local contexts. Robertson's work explores how cultural, economic, and social phenomena interact on a global scale, shaping and being shaped by local realities. His approach provides a nuanced understanding of the multifaceted nature of globalization, acknowledging both its universalizing and particularizing tendencies. Transnational religion refers to the spread of religious beliefs and practices across national borders. In this context, localization refers to the adaptation of these religious elements to local cultures while maintaining a global identity. This process involves blending global and local influences to create a unique expression of the religion in a specific region. The dynamic interplay between transnational influences and local adaptations contributes to the rich tapestry of religious diversity worldwide.
Oh, I live to appreciate you. Take all the love that I give, all that I wish is for you to take me. But I taste the lies on your lips. I count the days when we're in love, 'cause I only